On Sunday morning, we're talking about false teachers and false doctrine. The world is filled with false teachers, and here's one right here. His name is Benny Hinn.
Oh, man.
This guy is one of the crookedest people. This is it's very funny here. 600 infants whisper the name Benny Hinn, and they couldn't. Well, wait a minute. I'll go ahead and read it. Christian missionaries around the world are stunned by the birth of 600 babies this year, who all have said the name of international televangelist Benny Hinn with their first breath. They're from Bogota, Colombia, and they don't even speak English at that, but they can say Benny Hinn. Just doctors here worldwide are speechless at the sight of newly delivered children, clearly speaking the name of our beloved pastor, and the mothers over the crib going, no, Benny, Benny. Wah. Hey, that's it. You said it. Man, I can't read no more of that. Oh, man. Now, we're talking about how that the Bible, how the false teachers have changed the Word of God over the years. If you start repeating something as gossip, you usually embellish it and add your own opinion and put a little bit into it that wasn't there to begin with, and then it grows and it grows and it grows. I don't know if you've ever been around some people that stretch and embellish things. Well, I have been around people like that in my life, and they'll blow it into something that was completely opposite as to what originally happened. Well, that's what's happened the last 2,000 years over this thing called the Bible, or definition in the Word of God. And I've been kind of reading a few of these things I've got some of these books on what you would call idioms and metaphors. Now, an idiom, let me read to you an idiom again. An idiom, this is Webster's definition, is a particular language and dialect with phrases and expressions recognized by people who lived in that day and time, and metaphors, which are figures of speech, containing an implied comparison in which a word or phrase ordinarily used for one thing is applied to another. Now, we've got sayings, and they had metaphors. They use metaphors and idioms all the time. And I'm reading some out of these just to kind of let you know, here's a very, very good saying, and this is an old saying here in our nation, to bleed one white. That's very interesting, because literally this is to cause one to lose so much blood that he becomes pale. But for the last 300 years, men have been said to bleed when they have unwillingly or through fraud parted with an undue sum of money, as through blackmail or the like. When the victim has been bled white, in modern parlance, he had paid through the nose to such an extent that the extortionist sees that his racket has come to an end. Well, we talk about being made white in the blood of Christ there in the 7th chapter of Revelation, don't we? And what is that? That's a death. And what happens when you die? You bleed to death. Isn't that good? Got so many of these sayings in here. I'm not going to read. I don't know if I'll even read any more. I'll read this one right here. Crash the gate. If Willie Smith, in fitting attire, enters the portals of Madame Astorbilt's house or grounds to which he has not been invited in order to mingle with her guest, he has crashed the gate to do so. Or if little red-haired Sammy Jones finds a way to sneak past a ticket taker at Polo Grounds at Madison Square Garden, he too crashes the gate. Neither one has literally crashed anything other than the social or legal convention, but such an entrance, uninvited or non-paid, has been popular. American designation since approximately the end of World War I, no one knows, and there is no clue to the person who became the first gate crasher. We've got all kinds of things, and as you go through history, you find that sayings come into being to express something else. But what has happened is we're changing the Word of God, and God said, "I change not." David said that God's words are pure words. They're like silver tried in a fire. And Solomon said that his words are pure and they don't ever change. And over in Deuteronomy 4:2, the Scripture says we're not to add or diminish from the Word of God. And over in the 12th chapter of Deuteronomy, the Bible says those same words. We can't add or diminish. We can't change. Jesus says we can't change one jot or one tittle. Of course, the jot is the smallest letter of the Greek alphabet. It's called a yod. That's in the Greek way of pronunciation is jot. That's the smallest letter of the Greek alphabet. A tittle. You cannot change a tittle, because if you do, if you change the cough, and here's the cough, and here's the difference. Right there. That's called a tittle. It's just got just a little slight marking on the back of that. If you add this and you've got this, you've changed a B to a K. And you can't do that. The Jews said anyone that changed jots or tittles were destroying the world. So all is to remain the same. God said, I change not. The word change there in Malachi 3:6 is the word S-H-A-N-A-H, shana. That is the word change, and change means to transmute, or to duplicate. Now what God is saying, He's saying, I do not take a meaning of a word, and over 2,000-year period, mutate it, turning it into something else, and change it from this meaning here to this meaning up here. If this is 2001, and this is the year 96 A.D., where John the Beloved is writing the book of Revelation, what we think in the 21st century has nothing to do with the meaning of that word. You're going to have to go back to that day and time, and you're going to have to look at the idioms. What they called an idiom, if I said, that guy's lost his marbles, and then they bury our civilization, and they dig that up, and then they say, this guy had marbles, and he lost them, and they said he was an evil man, so something called marbles caused him to be evil. Mm-hmm. It didn't mean he had marbles. It meant he was a basket case. He was a fruit cake. What does that mean? It means he's a nut. So they had idioms just like we did. They called being crazy. They said when a man was crazy, he was possessed with a devil. But devil didn't mean what we think it means. Devil is the word D-A-I-M-O-N-I-O-N. Now the word daimonion, that is the Greek word. It's our word demon. Don't look for the word demon in the King James Bible. It's not there. You say, how do you know? Well, you take a Strong's Concordance. Every word in the Bible is listed here. You look it up alphabetically. Then you look at the numbers to the right. You go to all the numbers. And when you look at all those numbers, every time the word devil or daemon is mentioned, you're never going to find it. You're never going to find demon. You can't find demon in your Bible. It's not there unless you've got a modern Bible where they've translated demon. Demons were daimonion. It comes from the root dio, D-A-I-O, meaning to distribute fortunes. Distribute fortunes. I'm too close to the board. I can't write it close. All right. It means to distribute fortunes. Isn't that the message of Satan? Fall down and worship me, he tells Jesus. I'll give you the fortunes of the world. There's no such thing as demons. Now, I've done many series on that, and I am not talking off the top of my head. I go back into history. I've got a library upstairs. These are few books here, not many, but I have a ton of books upstairs. And what I do is I show people what these things mean. Now, we're going to look at some idioms this morning. We're going to look at some idioms and metaphors of the first century. I want us to go back. To the 11th chapter of Mark. 11th chapter of Mark. I want to tell you some things this morning, if the Lord will give me the strength and the understanding, some things we haven't said about this. And this has to do with idioms. Now, it may take me several weeks to preach this, because this chapter does not mean, when you hear Kenneth Copeland, you hear Benny Hinn, you hear Creflo Dollar, you hear Fred Price, or you hear whoever, Paul Crouch, Joyce Myers, this does not mean what they say it means. It does not. Now, when we start defining idioms, what we're going to do are define some things on the board, and I'm going to write them down. In the 11th chapter of Mark, we're going to go into certain idioms, and I'm going to go into something in this chapter that I've never gone into quite this much before. When men get proud, what did we say the mother of all idolatry was? What's the mother of all idolatry? Huh? Babylon, isn't it? Babylon. Babylon is the mother of all. The word is harlots. Harlots, the mother of harlots. That's Revelation 17 and 5. Revelation 17, 5. And the word harlot is the word P-O-R-N-E-I-A, porneia. We get our word porn or the word pornography from that. It means, the word pornography, what would the word pornography be? Huh?
What do you mean? What would it be?
What would it actually mean, pornography? If huh? Writings of idolatry. Writings of idolatry, because it comes from P-O-R-N-E-I-A, porneia, and G-R-A-P-H-E, graphe. Graphe is the word writing, is the Greek word writing, and porneia means idolatry. Idolatry, and what is the word idolatry? How do you write idolatry down? This is something you write down with your eyes, isn't it? Because idolatry is a construction. It is the word E-I-D-O-L-O-L-A-T-R-E-I-A, idololatria. That is the word idolatry. Well, idolatry in the Greek is constructed this way. E-I-D-O and L-A-T-R-E-U-O. Ido means to see or perceive. To see or perceive. And latruo means to serve. To serve. Well, what was the first thing Eve did? She looked at the tree. And Solomon said in Ecclesiastes 1:8, the eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. All things are full of labor. What does the eye and the ear remind us of? Proverbs 20 and 12, the seeing eye and the hearing ear, the Lord hath made even both of them. So if a man can hear truth, the word hear is the word obey in the Greek, S-H-A-M-A is the word hear. It is also the word obey. So whatever you put in your eyes and your ears, Ecclesiastes 1:8 says you're going to labor to fulfill it. That's what you're going to be doing, what you put in your eyes and your ears. People say, I can handle that. I'm a Christian. That don't bother me. Those movies don't bother me. Those girls don't bother me. They bother me. And is there any men here that doesn't bother? Huh? Yes, they bother you. Women need to put on clothes not because men don't like it. It's because we do like it. And that's the truth. That's why they put women out on highways in 30-foot tall figures half naked on billboards so we'll look and have a car wreck. That is the truth. And any man that doesn't feel that way, stop me while my back's turned, okay? Now, I know men, I are one. Now, and I'm not saying that I'm not saying to be funny. I'm saying this is serious stuff. When you go around with your breasts hanging out, men are going to stare because they're turned on instantly. You have no business doing that. Now, the mother of all idolatry. A mother was an instructor. She was an instructor. In Genesis 11 and 4, they said, let us build us a city. A mother was also a city. She was a city, and what is the word? M-E-T-R-O-P-O-L-I-S, metropolis. Metropolis means mother of the people. It comes from mater. Mater in Polish. Mater is the word mother. Polis is the word people. Mothers, during the Jewish times, she stayed at home and taught the children. A mother was a capital city of an empire that ruled to the borders. Well, that was also called a mountain. A mother was a mountain. And let's just put Babylon up here. And the Bible says Babylon was the mother of all idolatry. Well, what is the mother of all righteousness in Galatians, the 4th chapter? Jerusalem is the mother of us all. She is our instructor. So whenever you're talking about mothers, you're talking about instructors. They stayed at home, took the instruction of the father, instructed the children. Babylon, that has instructed all idolatry in the world, began at Babel. When they said in Genesis 11:4, they said, let us make us a name. Of course, the word name is the word Shem, and Shem means authority or a law, means authority or law, and Shem was the second born of Noah. They said, we don't like Shem telling us that we have to crucify ourselves. We want our own Shem that we can dictate our laws to. And what they've done, they started the fire worship there, which eventually became the Christ Mass, C-H-R-I-S-T, M-A-S-S, Christ Mass. And over the years, it was against the law to celebrate Christ Mass 300 years ago in America. This was a Protestant nation then, and they passed laws and would impose small fines. Christmas never hit a calendar till 354 A.D., 354. It was organized in 2425 A.D. at the Nicene Council when Roman Catholicism started. And it began in 312 when Constantine issued an edict of toleration throughout the world, and he said, we'll tolerate one another. The Christians will get along with the pagans, and the pagans will get along with the Christians. It wasn't until 1856 that Christmas became an American holiday, and at that time, the Protestant churches were having hardly anything to do with it at all. It is the Mass, Christ Mass. They dropped an S, connected the two words together. The Mass is when the priest hold up the little round Eucharist, and they say it turns into the literal body of Christ. And then they say they eat that body, and they're eating human flesh. Eating human flesh is called cannibalism. Cannibalism. And cannibalism comes from K-A-H-A-N, Kahan, and Baal. Kahan Baal. Kahan is the Jewish word priest. If you ever knew anybody named C-O-H-E-N, Cohen, there was a gangster in the 40s, and he was a partner with Bugsy Siegel in the Mafia. His name was Mickey Cohen, one of the meanest guys anywhere you could run across. This guy'd kill you at the drop of a hat. He was a priest of if his family had been alive all the way back to the days of Moses, he would have been a Levite, is what he would have been. The priests of Baal offered human sacrifice on their altars, and they ate human flesh, and they were Kahan Baals, or cannibals, and that's where the Mass started, and God decimated Israel for partaking of this situation called sun god worship. Christ's Mass is heathenism. We've changed it, and we've made it clean. Well, Job 14:4 says, who can bring a clean thing out of unclean? Not one. God said, I don't ever change. I don't mutate my word. If it's wrong, then it's wrong now. What's so good about Christmas? Just tell me anything's good about it. Spending? Getting drunk? Spending more money at the end of the year than any other time of the year? We don't do that. We do it different. You do. You do participate in the system that helps feed America this great lie. If we just put our money down here at Dillard's or any of these other stores, we're helping to propagate one of the greatest lies that's ever been. Jesus is the Messiah. Jesus was born of a virgin. Jesus died to save sinners. He was born in Bethlehem, Judea, but the Christ Mass has nothing to do with Him. It was the old Saturnalia that started on December the 17th and went to December the 24th, where they threw the Yule log in the fire, and the Yule was the same as the swastika. That was the fire wheel of the ancient world. Now, I didn't mean to go into this, but just to show a little bit of how men have changed everything. They said, let us make us a name. That's what men have done. They've said, let us make us a shem, and in pride and arrogance, men lift themselves up. So let us make us a name as the mother or as the instructor of all idol worship. And all of it comes out of the fire worship. You'll either worship God or you worship self. Your God is not what you call Him. You can say Jesus all you want to. This people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Now, there's some things we're going to define in Mark 11. Let's look at Mark 11. Mark 11. I'm going to read the verse that's been twisted all to pieces. I'm going to be on this subject several weeks. Now, let's go to Mark 11. And in verse 12, and on the morrow, when they were come from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree afar off, having leaves. Let me stop here a minute and go read the verse I meant to start with. Let me read the verse that everyone pollutes and twists. The verse that they twist starts at this verse 12. It has to do with fig trees and fruit trees. The verse is verse 23. For verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. Now, do you think that's the first time or the last time a mountain being removed and cast into the sea was mentioned? Let's look. Hold your place there. Let's go to Psalms 46 and 2. Psalms 46. Let's read 1 and 2. 46. 1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. This is talking about when we're in trouble in the world and men are out to get us. David said, Deliver me from the wicked, which is thy sword in thy hand. Therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea. Look at Revelation 18. Revelation 18. I'm not going to even go into explaining it right now. We're going to get to it. Revelation 18. Casting a mountain into the sea. First of all, Babylon, that mothered all idolatry on let us make us a name herself, is called a mountain. She's the mother of all idolatry. Jerusalem is the mother of us all, because that's where the temple stands and the law of God emanates from Jerusalem. That's Zion. Zion is the mountain of God, and she is the mother of us all. You will listen to one mother, or you will listen to another. You'll listen to the mountain of what you can see and hear, when the Bible says we walk by faith and not by what we see and what we think is going to happen. Don't listen to Fred Price when he says it. He does not know what he's talking about. Faith is dying. Faith is not wishing. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. Hebrews 11:1. Substance. That is, what is the word? Hypostasis comes from hupo, meaning under, and stasis means to stand under. It means to understand. Faith is the substance, is hypostasis. Well, there's none that understandeth. In order to understand, we have to learn, don't we? What is a learner? A mathetes. What is that word in English? It's the word disciple. Mathetes is a disciple. And Jesus said, if you don't bear your cross and follow me, you can't be my disciple, my learner. You cannot understand. It takes a cross. And by the way, the word stasis, from that we get staros, and that is the word cross. And we're not talking about the wooden cross that Jesus carried. We're talking about the daily cross. If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and die to self. That's faith. Faith says, God, I believe you for whatever you give me. If it's a bicycle, not God, I believe you for my Christmas list, and let's start off with a new Cadillac. That's not the way God works. You may say, God, I need a way to work. And He'll send you a tricycle one day or a lawnmower. You've got a way. So when we're talking about faith, we're talking about substance of things hoped for. The evidence, E-L-E-G-C-H-O, elenco. That word evidence comes from a word that's very close, E-L-E-G-C-H-O-S. That word elenkos, that is the word rebuke. What rebukes a man? This right here is the evidence. That's the word elenco. And evidence, what is the evidence that rebukes a man? It's the smoking gun down there on the evidence table. It is the knife with your fingerprints on it. You're pronounced guilty. You have been rebuked by God. That is the word. It's not, it is, don't you believe these guys when they say it's things and stuff. Now, why would Jesus say, lay not up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust doth corrupt and thieves break through and steal? And if you haven't been here before, you may say, well, what about all these other verses about prosper? I'll give you my favorite verse that they preach. Here's my favorite verse that they preach. 3 John 2. I would that you prosper and be in health. E-U-O-D-O-O. Euodao. That is the word in the Greek. It's a construction of EU. That word means well. And hodos. That word hodos, this means a well hodos. The word hodos is the common word way, road, journey. I live on Irvin Street, or Irvin Hodos. That's what you would say in the first century. Irvin Hodos. Gallatin Hodos is right down here a few blocks. I live on Irvin. You go up to Maple Hodos, and you turn left to get back there. So this means a well way, and Jesus said, by saying a well way, wishing for guys the well way, you Hodos. By the way, Pan, one of the gods of the pagans in the ancient world, he was said to be the all in all. There is an idiom. Who said in the Bible that he was the all in all? Jesus said, no, that's not Pan, that's me. And Pan, when we say Pan, we mean let's pan the audience. That means cover all of it. That's what that means. That's why he was called all in all. Well, Pan had another name, and he's, as the God of the ways, he was the God of the highways, he was the God of the fields and the shepherds, and Pan was called Hodos. Jesus said, what we're doing, what is it?
I was going to say before you go on, where was that in Psalms that you said after Mark 11:23?
Psalms 46. 46, 1 and 2, yeah.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
Euhodos, that was a name for Pan, or the all. He said, I'm the God of the highways. I'm the God of all the ways. When Jesus said, I am the way, the Hodos, that was commonly understood that Pan was said to be that. And when John wished for Gaius, the well way, he was talking about, no, not Pan. Those gods had little flutes, and they had hooves on their feet and little horns sticking out. That was a pan, and they played them little flutes, and we think of the pan flute, don't we?
Prominent symbol in literature.
Yeah, that's what it is. It certainly is. And that's where we get the picture of the devil. Now, of course, when John says, well, way, then you got two ways. You got a narrow hodos, or a narrow way there in Matthew 7:13 and 14, and you have a broad hodos. And when these guys are talking about prosper means money, they are lying right straight through their teeth. That is oppression of the poor, the widow, and the orphan. And let me tell you, Fred Price, what God said He'll do to you for that. When He says to you, John Hagin, I've heard John Hagin say, if you're poor, you're stupid, you're dumb, that's your fault. Let me tell you, I've heard Fred say that. I've heard John Hagin say that. I have heard Kenneth Copeland say that. Let me tell you what God said to you, Kenneth. In Exodus, the 22nd chapter, He said, if you oppress the widow and the orphan, He said, I will hear their cry, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives will be widows, and your sons and daughters will be orphans. Are those hard words? Now, I don't have answers. God has answers for all of these things. Now, look over here in Revelation 18. We're talking about be cast into the sea. Cast into the sea. I'm going to take my time on this. The 18th chapter of Revelation, let me show you this. Let me erase some of this up here. In the 18th chapter, this is a description of the destruction of Babylon. That is the destruction of all sin of all time. This is at the coming of Christ. Revelation 16 speaks of Armageddon and then speaks of the destruction of Babylon. Then you have a parenthesis, 17 and 18. 17 describes who she is. She's the mother of idolatry. 18 talks about her destruction, how she's going to be destroyed. And 19 gives you another vivid account of Christ coming back to destroy her. They would repeat something over and over. You've got the destruction of Babylon in the 6th chapter, the 10th chapter, the 11th chapter, the 14th chapter, and the 16th chapter, plus these right here. You've got Babylon being destroyed, or self, or let us make us our own name, being destroyed. Now let's look at it right here in verse 21. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, this is the same way, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And Babylon, the mountain will be cast into the sea. Now Babylon is also called a mountain. Babylon is called a city. Babylon is called a mother. So if Babylon comes up out of the sea, then the mountain comes out of the sea, doesn't it? Huh? Let's go back to Mark 11. Go back to Mark 11. Now, let's write these words. Don't let me erase these. I'm going to write these things down. And these are things that we're going to define. We're going to define a mountain. We're going to define sea. We're going to define some words here, and look at, go back to when I flipped away from it. In Mark 11, when he says, if you'll say to this mountain, that is not talking about a mountain of debt. We're going to have to establish what a mountain is in the Bible. Let me get back over here. I was talking, not paying attention. Now, Mark 11, verse 23. For verily I say unto you that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, for is a conjunction. It is dependent. It is a conjunction that connects it to verse 22. That connects to 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12. The thought of all this starts in verse 12. Now let's go back to verse 12. And on the morrow when they were come from Bethany, Jesus was hungry. And seeing a fig tree afar off, having leaves. Now, if you don't study all these books, you don't have to study all of them. I got all kinds of books upstairs. I got rooms full of books. If you study Jewish culture, you're going to find out about fig trees. You can take probably this right here, just the pictorial encyclopedia. I've got dozens of encyclopedia sets, at least a dozen. And if you study the writers of the first century, you had several kinds of fig trees. You had domestic fig trees that they ate from. The domestic fig trees, you had at the early part of the spring, pre-season figs came out on the tree. Then the leaves came on the tree. The figs came first before the leaves. Now, why would Jesus be looking for figs on this tree? Because it had leaves. Now, let's continue reading. He came, but you're not going to know that if you don't read about fig trees through a Jewish culture book and read some farmer's explanation or some great scholar who's retained these saying from the farmers in that day and time. Seeing a fig tree afar off having leaves, very significant, he came if haply he might find anything thereon. When he came to it, he found nothing but leaves. Well, the rest of the verse sounds like we can understand why. But you can't when I read this next phrase. For the time of figs was not yet. That sounds like that contradicts what I just said, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
But what does the word time of figs mean? We need to define time of figs. Time of figs was not a term for the time of the figs to be on the tree. It was the fig harvest. The time to harvest the figs was not yet, and when you read in McClintock and Strong's, they will tell you these very words, time of figs, meant the fig harvest. So there should have been leaves, there should have been figs on the tree unless it was 5 years old. Well, unless it was 1 to 4 years old. 1 to 4 years old. 1 to 4. What do you mean 1 to 4 years old? That don't make any sense to me. Well, I'll show you in a minute. And he says, and seeing having leaves, he came to find something on, for the time of figs was not yet. And Jesus answered and said unto it, to the tree. Now, Jesus can talk to trees, you can't. You're going to be considered crazy as a Betsy bug, and we're going to put a little straitjacket on you. No man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever, and his disciples heard it. Do you think when Jesus said something or did something, he had a reason to do it? Amen. Well, sure he did. Let's see what it is. Well, let me read on, then I'll see what it is. And then he leaves and goes to, they came to Jerusalem, and Jesus went into the temple and began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple, and threw out the tables of the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves, and would not suffer that any man should carry any vessel through the temple. And he taught, saying unto them, Is not written, My house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer, but ye have made of it a den of thieves? And the scribes and chief priests heard it, and sought how they might destroy him, for they feared him, because all the people were astonished. They were amazed at his doctrine. They said, No man spake like this man spake. And when even was come, he went out of the city. And in the morning, as they passed by, they saw the fig tree dried up from the roots. And Peter, calling to remembrance, saith unto him, Master, behold, the fig tree which thou cursest is withered away. Of course, the word behold doesn't say, Hey, look, I'd like to present this to you, Jesus. The word behold, remember the word behold? Iday. Needs a couple of exclamation points there. Are you stupid? You killed a fruit tree, Jesus. I thought you told us you were God. Don't you know, Jesus, it's against the law to kill fruit trees? The word idiotes, idiotes, no prophecy of Scripture is any private interpretation. We get our word idiot, means unlearned. Now, sometimes when I call these guys idiots, that's what they are. Kenneth Copeland is an idiot. He's unlearned. He doesn't know what he's doing. Why all these big preachers don't know these things, Jim Brown, and you do? Have you ever heard of something called the apostasy? Apostasis, a falling away from the truth. At the end of time, there will be very little truth going on in the world. There is no world revival at all. Now, They said, what are you, unlearned? Don't you know it's against the law to kill fruit trees? And Jesus answering saith unto them, have faith in God. It does not say have the faith of God. It says have faith in God. I'm God. Believe me, you guys have made yourself a name. You've come up with your own shem, your own authority, because you think, I don't know what the law says. Well, let me show you what they were thinking about when they said, you killed a fruit tree. Are you unlearned? Are you an idiot? Go to Deuteronomy 20. Deuteronomy 20. Deuteronomy 20. Last two verses. Deuteronomy is the last book of the law, the last book of the Torah, or what we call Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy comes from dew, meaning two, D-E-U, and nomos, meaning law. It's the second law. It's what it is. Right before they crossed the river to go into the land of Canaan. Look at verse 19. Here is what Peter and John were reminding Jesus of right here. When thou shalt besiege a city a long time in making war against it, to take it, thou shalt not destroy the trees thereof by forcing an axe against them, for thou mayest eat of them. You don't kill fruit trees under any condition. It was the substance of life. That's what the Jews said. And thou shalt not cut them down, for the tree of the field is man's life, to employ them in the siege. You don't cut down fruit trees ever. You see, they could remember that part of the law, but there was a part of it they conveniently forgot. Only the trees which thou knowest that they be not trees for meat. That doesn't mean beefsteak were growing on a tree. Meat meant anything you put in your mouth and you ate. Only the trees that are not for meat thou shalt destroy and cut them down, and thou shalt build bulwarks against the city that maketh war with thee until it be subdued, but not with fruit trees. It's against the law. Now, Jesus knew something about the tree. Let's go over to Leviticus, the 19th chapter. Leviticus 19. We're going to hit some things, though. Now, we're talking about Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus 19. 19 and verse 23. This is the law. You cannot study Jesus' words without going over to the law. And when ye shall come into the land, and shall have planted all manner of trees for food, fruit trees, then ye shall count the fruit thereof as uncircumcised 3 years. In McClintock's and Strong, they tell us that what they had to do, the first 3 years, they had to pluck the buds off the tree. One time, right after we moved here, 20 years ago, Mary was out there and she had some new flowers, and she's out there plucking the buds off. I said, Mary, those are pretty flowers. What are you doing? Well, she knew more about growing flowers than I did. That way they will flourish the next year. If you pluck them off every year for a couple of years, then they bush out. If you keep your trees cut back, they'll bush out. Well, that's what was going on here. For the first 3 years shall it be as uncircumcised unto you, it shall not be eaten thereof. They weren't allowed to eat for the first 3 years. But in the 4th year, all the fruit thereof shall be holy to praise the Lord withal. The 4th year, the fruit will belong to God, and the people could not eat until the 5th year. Read it. And in the 5th year shall ye eat of the fruit thereof, that it may yield unto you the increase thereof. I am the Lord your God. If it wasn't bearing anything by the 5th year, it was cumbering the ground, and it was pulling all the nutrients out of the ground. And Jesus himself said to John the Baptist, he said, every tree that bringeth not forth fruit, the axe shall be laid to the root of the tree. Jesus was laying the axe to the root of the tree, and this was a picture of the barren tree of the Pharisees, who claimed afar off, he stood afar off, he said, it's a beautiful tree, it claims to have fruit, and it has none, and it's supposed to. The time of figs is not yet. They haven't been harvested. And Jesus said, no man will eat fruit of you forever. Now the point was, did Jesus know how old the tree was? It was just in the way. It was in the hodos. It was along the road, along the hodos. He was God. He knew how old it was, and He would never have broken the law ever. Now, let's go over here to Luke 13. Here we see it here. Luke 13. Then I'm going to get to the sea, the mountains and the sea in a moment. Luke 13, 6. 13 and verse 6. And he spake also this parable. A certain man had a fig tree, a fruit tree, planted in his vineyard, and he came and sought fruit thereon, and found none. And said he unto the dresser of his vineyard, Behold, these 3 years. How many years there in Leviticus 19 you're supposed to let a tree grow? 3, it's uncircumcised, isn't it? He said, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree and find none. Cut it down. Why cumbereth it the ground? And the one that knew the law said, No, no. And he answering said unto him, Lord, let it alone this year, also till I dig about it and dung it. And if it bear fruit, well, but if not in the 4th year, if the 5th year comes and there's no fruit, then thou shalt cut it down, lay the axe to the root of the tree. That's what all this is about. Now, let's go back to Mark 11. I'm going to try to get to the sea. We're defining all these words. So we got time of figs. I got to put this up here. The tree with leaves. This is the fig tree. Fig tree. Number 4, tree with leaves. We've defined that. Tree with leaves. Number 5. Well, number five, we'll get that in a minute. Let's look at this right here, mountain. Mountain. Let me read to you. This is out of McClintock and Strong. What he's telling them, now I couldn't understand this for the longest time. He curses the fig tree. They go to the temple, and when they go to the temple, they cleanse the temple. Then when they come back, they start arguing with Jesus, and we're the temple of God, and Jesus is telling them, Peter and John, you're going to have to cleanse that temple you're living in. You're going to have to cleanse the temple that wants to argue with me. Have faith in God. I'm God. I know how old the tree is. There is impossible that Jesus would have broken the law. He's saying, you have faith in me. I'm God. I know the age of the tree. Then he said, what was it that was happening to them? They were making themselves a name, weren't they? Name means authority. Shem was the authority of God. Huh?
They were telling him what to do.
They were telling Jesus what to do. Peter had his foot back in his mouth about there. And Jesus said, I am God, believe me, I know what I'm doing. Then he said, Peter, aren't you tired of sticking your foot in your mouth? Aren't you tired of that, Peter? Wouldn't you like to have what you say? Well, you're going to have to say what I say in order to have what you say. Well, what is it we do when we say what he says?
Confess.
Confess. That's it. Confess. If thou shalt confess with thy mouth, confess is homo, L-O-G-E-O. It means of the same, homo, logos, word. It means to be of the same word or to agree with. We agree with him. We don't start specifying and saying, here's what I want. This is what I think I get. Well, you don't get what you think. You get what God gives you. Now, I've got a section here, and I'm going to read it to you. I've got a whole lot of things on the sea I've never given you before. If I can get to the sea, this is going to be an extensive study. But Adam McClintock and Strong, I make all these copies. Let me read this to you one more time about. Well, I've got it in my new newsletter I'm writing. I'll read some of it to you here. First of all, let us begin by defining a mountain. If you'll say to this mountain, be thou removed, be thou cast into the sea. A great number of erroneous false teachers say that this is a mountain of debt or problems. This is far from the truth. This is a ploy by charlatans or con men to elicit money from the poor. A mountain in the first century was more than a peak with a high elevation. Mountain was a common metaphor. McClintock's and Strong's Cyclopedia of Biblical, Theological, and Ecclesiastical Literature teach us that a mountain is in symbolical language. It was a figurative representation for a fortress or a stronghold. This is what a mountain is. Let's write this down. Okay? Mountain. Mountain. Number one, it's a fortress or a stronghold. And Babylon was a stronghold, wasn't it? They had these moats about 400 feet deep. They had walls on their cities that were like 400 feet high. If you fell off the wall and you fell to the bottom of the moat, you're going to fall the length of a skyscraper. You ain't got no way to live. You're going to, this was 14 miles square on each side. It was like traveling from here to Nashville and seeing the most magnificent edifice you have ever seen. We have never had anything in the world ever since built like that. 800 feet high from bottom to top, and you could see it coming across the desert and say, what is that? That is great Babylon that I have built, Nebuchadnezzar said. God struck him down on his face when the words went him out of his mouth. So was that a stronghold? Yes. When the mother of all idolatry, it reminds me, oops, I'm making that long way out there. Okay. Casting down strongholds in every imagination. Go over there go to 1 Corinthians 10. 2 Corinthians 10. Go over there. Now, when they said, let us make us a name, what was it God said? This they began to do. Now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Isn't that what he said? Huh? Well, that's what this word is here. I've got the word written in... I've got it written in this Bible over here. Excuse me. I'll get this one. I've forgotten the word. I believe it's akoroma. I believe it's akoroma. Hold on. And this is another verse that has been polluted.
You talking about verse 4, Jim? The word for stronghold?
Yeah.
It is. It's
Okoroma? O-C-H-R-O-M-A?
Yes, sir.
Okay, O-C-H-R-O-M-A. O-C-H-R-O-M-A. Now here is a verse that has been polluted. That word okoroma means a stronghold or a fortress. Now let's read it. It means that for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. This doesn't mean woo, woo, wee, not carnal. And then we all start doing backflips. But mighty through God to the pulling down of okoroma. O-C-H-R-O-M-A, strongholds or Babylon. The only one we want to pull down in our life is to say to this mountain, Babylon, be thou removed and be thou cast into the sea, pulling down that stronghold. And every high thing, these were their high towers. Let us make us a name. Let us make up our own authority. This has nothing to do with what Oral Roberts says. This is definition. Every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God. What is really truth? And bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ, obeying His word and not our imagination, casting down all imaginations. Verse 5, we pull down strongholds, we cast down imagination. The stronghold of the world is Babylon. She was built upon, let us make us a name. That's fire worship. And we cast down our imaginations. When men start getting involved in Babylon, they start imagining Christ's Mass. They redefine prayer, proseuchomai, which means to bow to the will of God. It don't mean to ask God for what you want. They redefine the word ask, A-I-T-E-O. Aiteo doesn't mean to ask God just by any way you want to ask Him. That word ask in the New Testament is a legal term. You have to be asking legally. You have to be dying, not asking for yourself, not stipulating anything, bowing to His will and saying, God, give me the things that are spiritual. Are we in a mess?
It's getting worse. It's not getting better.
These guys are not telling the truth. First of all, they don't study. I've been studying Bible for 44 years. If you'll study Bible all the time, night and day, I'll help you. I'll show you the books to get, and you can read them yourself. I've had people tell me, I was reading the book the other day. I was reading Alfred Edersheim, and he said it, and you said it verbatim the way he said it. I'm not making these things up. All right, let me finish reading here. McClinic and Strong's Encyclopedia of Biblical, Theological, and Ecclesiastical Literature teaches that a mountain in symbolical language was figurative representation for a fortress. It was a stronghold, and particularly it was a capital city. Whoops, I've written all over my deal there. A fortress, a stronghold, a capital city. It's what it was, a mountain. If you'll say to this capital city, be thou removed and be thou cast in the sea, what did Peter and John, what were they doing? They had within them the very essence of Babylon. When they were arguing with Jesus, they said, let us make us up our own authority, our own doctrine, our own prophecy. And then they say, Jesus, are you an idiot? You don't correct the living God on anything.
Exactly.
And he said, have faith in God, I'm God, shut your mouth. Peter, the only way you're going to have what you say is say what I say and confess me. Now, it was a capital city. It's a fortress. Number 2, let me write fortress again. It's a fortress. A fortress was for making war. A fortress, capital city. Now, it was the residence of a governor. And that would go with capital city. Residence of a governor or ruler. The mountain of Nashville is, the mountain of Tennessee is Nashville. The mountain of England is London. The mountain of Russia is Moscow. The mountain of France is Paris. The mountain of Texas is Austin. I was raised in Texas.
But it's a mother, too.
Yes, it's a mother also. It's a metropolis, metropolis, mother of the polis. We get politic from polis. People. It means mother of the people. Let me continue reading. It's the place of a governor, executes a sovereign law to the borders of that domain. What law do they execute in Babylon? Make pride. Remember, the word name is the word Shem. Shem received the blessing of God. He was God's authority. All the earth was of one language and one speech. Shem, the eldest, will dwell in the... Japheth, the eldest of Noah's sons, will dwell in the tents of Shem, and Ham will be the servants of Shem, and Shem owns everything. And they said, we don't like this Shem telling us what to do. Let us make us a Shem. We're proud. We'll come up with our own doctrine. I want to emphasize that a mountain rules with a given law upon which that kingdom was built. Let us go to the Scripture to verify this concept. Go to Psalms 30. Go to Psalms 30. Just to see what a mountain is. We're going to verify a mountain. I've got quite a bit to say about the sea. Psalms 30. I'm not going to get through this week. I've just got a ton of stuff. This is the first time that I'm going to take my time on this. I'm always rushing through it. Psalms 30, verse 7. David speaking. A psalm of dedication of the house of David. Where was the house of David? On Mount Zion, the capital city of Israel. Lord, by thy favor thou hast made my mountain to stand strong. He's not talking about my mountain of debt. He's talking about Israel. Thou didst hide thy face, and I was troubled. I cried thee, O Lord, unto the Lord I made supplication. He said, you're the one that came and you rescued me. David is saying, he speaks as the governor or the king of Israel, that God has established his rule in Jerusalem, the mountain of Israel. Let's go to Isaiah 2:2. Go to Isaiah 2 and verse 2. Let's just see. This is right. If a mountain is a capital city, and it is, let's read 1 and 2. The word that Isaiah the son of Amos saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem, it shall come to pass in the last days. When is the last days? We know they were here in Acts 2, don't we? Acts 2, the Lord says, in the last days He's going to pour out of His Spirit. And what is the Holy Spirit? John 14, 16, 17, John 15, 26, 16, 13, 1 John 5 and 6. The Spirit is the truth. When you're baptized with the Spirit, A-L-E-T-H-E-I-A, that is the Greek word. That is the Greek word truth. The Holy Spirit is truth. John 17, 17, thy word is truth. Truth is a construction of L-A-N-T-H-A-N-O. Here it's what you have when you have the Holy Spirit. You have the truth. Lanthano means to lie hid or to conceal. When you place the alpha, first letter of the Greek alphabet, as a negative particle, it is called the alpha privative, A-L-P-H-A, P-R-I-V-A-T-I-V-E. When it's placed in front of a word to negate the word, it gives an opposite meaning. Placing the alpha privative in front of lanthano, which means to lie hid, translates aletheia, the word truth. It means not to hide anything. When you have the Holy Spirit, you pull the cover off. It's what you do. You don't jump up and down and do cartwheels. You say, here is the truth. You say it and you die for it. Isn't that what Jesus did? Now, where was I? Isaiah 2:2. The last days, the first days from Adam until Christ was 4,000 years. A day is with the Lord as 1,000 years. 1,000 years is one day. And I believe from Christ to the end of time will be 2,000 years. And the reason these guys are polluting these verses, there is an apostasy. Apostasy comes from apo, stasis. We said stasis, meant to stand. Apo means a removal of standing or removal of the staros, the cross, the daily cross. Men hate the daily cross because they mind earthly things. That's what the Bible says. The last days, the Lord will give His Spirit to the Gentile church. Gentile church. The Goyim. That's it. G-O-Y or G-O-I-M is plural. And that in the Goyim also means the flight of locust. It's good. Like that. Because that's what the Gentiles were. They were the locusts. Don't have time to go there. Now, it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house, the mountain, the capital city of the Lord's house. What is a capital city? It's called a mountain. Everything that was once literal over here, I don't have time to go into this, has become spiritual over here. If Israel was a mountain here and a ruling mountain of Israel over here, Israel is spiritual over here, circumcision is spiritual in the New Testament. What is the mountain of God over here, or the mountain of the Lord's house? What is the Lord's house? The church. The house of the Lord, let me erase this, the house of the Lord was called the Holy of Holies. That's because He came down and dwelt between the cherubim. The word dwelt means to build a house. Build a house. Here's the temple. Here's the veil of the temple. Here's the candlesticks on the south side. The altar of incense. Here's the veil of the temple. The Ark of the Covenant. On the north side of the holy place was the table of showbread. Here's the cherubim, the mercy seat inside. And God came down out of Shekinah glory and dwelt and sat down right there. That was His throne. This was called the house of God. It was literal over here. What is it over here? Hebrews 3:6, the Bible says Christ as a son over His own house. Whose house are we? Now let's read this. We are God's house in the last days of the last 2,000 years, that the mountain, capital city, what's the capital city of the Lord's house? Zion, Jerusalem, isn't it? Hebrews 12:22. Look at it. Look at Hebrews 12:22. Now here's the mountain of God. Hebrews 12:22. Look at Hebrews 12:22. Here's the mountain of God. 12:22. But ye are come unto Mount Zion. That's God's mount, isn't it? And unto the city. He's telling us a mountain is a city right there, isn't he? And unto the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to an innumerable company of angels, to the general assembly and church. The mountain of God is Jerusalem. It is the city. It is the church of the firstborn. We're predestined to conform to the image of His Son, that we be the firstborn. The priesthood. Now, I don't have time to go there either. Now, let's go back over here. Now, let's go back over here to Isaiah 2. It shall come to pass in the last days, the last 2,000 years, that the mountain of the Lord's house, that the mountain, the capital city, Jerusalem, of the house of God, the temple, shall be established in the top of all the mountains of the world. What does that mean? Well, in the old days, the only place God's mountain was established was within these borders called Israel. And He said, now I'm going to pour out of my Spirit my truth on all flesh, and it will be from sea to sea. It will be from one end of the earth to the other. It will be the Gentile church, and that will be heavenly Jerusalem. The mountain of God is what it is. And He said, shall it be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. Mountains and hills, does that remind you of anything? Remind me of T-A-P-E-I-N-O-O. Tepanua. Humble yourselves under the hand of God. I believe I've got it right here, I think. Humble is the word tepanua, and when it's defined in the Theological Word Book of the Old Testament, they'll tell you specifically that this means, let me read it to you. Hold on. If I've got it, I can tell it to you if I don't have. I think I've got it. Y'all, does anybody remember what that means? Tepanua. Means level mountains and hills is what it means. I got it here somewhere. I'm sorry, but I can't find it. It means level mountain. Humble means to level mountains and hills. What is a mountain? Horos is the Greek word. It means what rises above the plain. Where did they build? Where did they build Babylon? On a plain, straddling the river. They built it on sand, didn't they? Not on a rock. Right. When we rise above the plain and we make ourselves a name, we're filled with pride and self. We've made ourselves a doctrine, and we made ourselves a stronghold, and we fly against the face of God. That's what we do. I don't have time to go through all of this right here, right now. And all nations shall flow to it. That is the word goy or goyim, a flight of locusts. All the nations, it means non-Jews, Gentiles, will come to the church, to the mountain of God. Let me continue reading here. I'm going to read you what I put in the newsletter on that. It shall come to pass in the last days, a day is with the Lord is 1,000 years. 1,000 years is one day there in 2 Peter 3:8. in the last 2,000 years or last days that the mountain of the Lord's house, the church, or spiritual Israel with a spiritual capital city in Hebrews 12:22, or mountain, we the church or God's house, Hebrews 3:6, shall be established in the top of the mountains. That means the church will be established in Tokyo, London, and everywhere they rule, in Paris and everywhere they rule, in Washington and everywhere they rule, in all the other mountains of the world. The church is going to be established, not limited to that one border. It's going to be all over the world. The earth shall be full of His knowledge and glory as waters that cover the sea. That's what Habakkuk was talking about. The knowledge of the Lord will be all over the world. Who had the knowledge in the Old Testament? Just those people inside those borders. Isn't that all? That's it. God's church, His spiritual Jerusalem or spiritual mountain shall be established in the capital cities of the world from sea to sea. The earth shall be full of the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as waters that cover the sea in Zechariah 9:10, Habakkuk 2:14. This is the Gentile church or God's mountain established. All the mountains for the last days or the last 2,000 years. Daniel 2:35. Let's go and look at Daniel 2:35. I've got more on the sea than I've got on mountains. I've got some really good stuff on the sea. All right. Daniel 2. Yeah, it's in McClintock and Strong on the Mount. I wrote a lot of the other stuff. Now, Daniel 2:35. Look here. (2:35). This is the vision of Nebuchadnezzar. We see the head of gold in verse 32. Daniel later tells him that the head of gold is Babylon, doesn't he? Babylon is the mountain, isn't it? Then the silver, that is the one that overthrows Babylon, which was Persia. The brass overthrows Persia, that's Greece. And then the third is iron, and that is Rome, overthrowing the Grecian Empire. And look at verse 34. Let's read 34. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron and the clay and the brass and the silver and gold, or Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, or the world beast system, the Babylonian lion, the Persian bear, the Grecian leopard, and you find that in Revelation 13:2, Hosea the 13th chapter, and in Daniel the 7th chapter. Broken to pieces together and become like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried away that no place was found for them. The stone that smote the image became a great mountain. Jerusalem, all over the earth, all over the world, and fill the whole earth. The earth shall be full of the knowledge and glory of the Lord as waters that cover the sea. That is the Gentile church, the mountain of God. We say to the mountain of Babylon that says, let us make us a name, that wants to argue with God, get back to the sea where you belong.
Jim, would the destruction of Babylon also come in Jeremiah 51:24?
Yeah, we're going to get to that. Ain't there yet. Not there yet. But look at Daniel interpreting the dream over here further in the chapter. Look at verse 43. I don't have time to really go into this. This is a long study on prophecy, and I'll go back through this. Whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, the feet were of iron, but it wasn't. The clay wasn't fused with it. When they wanted to get clay ready to put on the potter's wheel, they had a treading trough, and they would go out there and tread that. What was the purpose of the beast? It was to tread Israel down, to tread them and make them ready for the potter's wheel. Babylon's purpose was to refine Israel when Israel was carried into captivity. So the clay, once the clay is taken out, Babylon falls. There's no purpose for Babylon when that's over. And I'm not going to Cyrus and the two-leaf gates and damming up the Euphrates. That's the Old Testament, the Euphrates and the in the New is spiritual. Mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another. That's because iron is not mixed with clay. They'll tread the clay down. That's Israel. And you can read that in Micah 7:10 and Zechariah. Well, let's go ahead and read Micah 7:10. I'll just show you this, just for the fun of it. I love this. Micah 7:10. This is not talking about they're constructed of this way. Micah 7, verse 10. Then she that is mine enemies, mine enemy shall see it, and shame shall cover her, which said unto me, Where is the Lord thy God? Mine eyes shall behold her. Now shall she be trodden down as the mire of the streets. And then she'll be ready to be put on the potter's wheel. You've also got that in Zechariah 9:3 and in 10:5. And I'm not going to go any further than that. But look here. Look here in 44. In the days of those kings shall the King of heaven set up a kingdom. What is a kingdom? A mountain. What was it said that's going to destroy this beast world system? It's going to be the stone that comes out of the mountain. Jesus is the rock in the church that destroys the mountain. Which shall never be destroyed, in the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. That's God's mountain, the church, Israel, spiritual Israel, those that believe God. That's what it is.
Jim, that's a picture there of the church not mixing with Babylon.
That's right, not mixing, but that's the church being carried into captivity in Babylon. And he says in Zechariah, the 2nd chapter, he says, Deliver thyself, O Zion, from Babylon. He says that literally in the 2nd chapter of Zechariah. In the 13th chapter of Revelation, the 18th chapter of Revelation, the 4th verse, he says, Come out of her, my people, and be not partaker of her plagues. I'm fixing to destroy Babylon. The mountain that has destroyed the world. Now, oh man, let me read this to you. I've got it written down. Well, how much time do I have? Huh? 17. I need more time. Now, read what? Okay. For as much as thou sawest that the stone that was cut out of the mountain without hands. This mountain was not built. Babylon was a destroying mountain built with bricks, built with hands. This is a mountain not built with hands. This is not some high elevation in the distance. He says, without hands, and that it break in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. The rock, Christ, the stone, will come out of the church and destroy Babylon when he comes back in the sky. This is figurative language. If you miss this, you've missed it all. I've got so many more. I'm going to have to go to the 51st chapter of Jeremiah before I don't have time to do this. Go to the 51st chapter of Jeremiah. So Babylon mothered all idolatry on self. Let us make us a name. Let us make us an authority. Let's go to the 50. Don't you listen to these guys when they're saying a mountain of debt. No, a capital city that rules you and your opinion, that argues against God. That's what they were doing in Genesis 11 and 4, arguing with Shem. Say, we don't like Shem, we make our own Shem. And they did, and they made him a virgin mother and a virgin son and a Trinity and a blood baptism and a Eucharist and the whole thing. And it's going on now. That's right. Now let's go to Jeremiah 51. Here is the prophecy of the destruction of the first Babylon. He says he's going to use Jacob as the portion of his inheritance in verse 19. He uses Israel as a battle axe in verse 20. A rod to break in pieces. They said, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the earth, let us make us a name. He said, now nothing will restrain which they've imagined to do. I will break in pieces their languages and confuse their tongues. I don't have time to go into that. Tongues ain't what people say it is either. Dialects and glossa, foreign languages and dialects. Verse 24, I will render unto Babylon and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea, another name for the area of Babylon. Babylon is built right here on the Euphrates River, about 150 miles above the Persian Gulf. Right about there on the Euphrates. And here is her destruction. When Belshazzar was partying with the instruments of the Lord, and I will render unto Babylon and all the inhabitants of Chaldea all their evil that they have done in Zion in your sight, saith the Lord, behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain. What is a mountain? What's destroyed all the world? Babylon. What was Peter and John doing? Arguing with Jesus about killing a fruit tree. Don't you know? Listen to our authority. We know the law of God. What arrogance. And Jesus said, have faith in God, that's me. You've got a mountain possessing you. If you'll say to this mountain, be thou removed, and be thou cast in the sea, Peter, you can finally get what you say, because you'll have to agree with me to get rid of self. Not a mountain of debt. That's a lie. God, help us. All this foolishness. Not defining anything. Don't bother to study. How do I know those guys don't study? I spend 30, 35 hours a week studying. I've done that for years and years and years and years and years. That is not a boast. That is a fact. I can listen to a man preach for 5 minutes and tell you if he knows anything. These guys are ignoramuses. Mary said this morning, we were getting ready, standing in the bathroom by the mirror. She said, I'm really beginning to understand things. She said, I can listen to these preachers now and get mad like you do. They are lying. We're in the apostasy. The end of time is here. There's no world revival. The Bible does not teach that. It teaches a worldwide deception by changing God's Word. God said, I change not. If a mountain was a capital city here, it's a capital city here. It is not a mountain of debt. That's a lie. The sea is twofold. God delivers from fools and idiots like these guys. Look at, oh goodness, I've got so many things. Revelation 6. Let's go to Revelation 6. Did I finish that? No, wait, I didn't finish that. Wait a minute. Go back. I'll make thee a burnt mountain. Then he says, and they, verse 26, they shall not take of thee a stone for a corner nor a stone for a foundation, but thou shalt be desolate forever, saith the Lord. When literal Babylon was destroyed, it will never rise again. I don't care what Saddam Hussein thinks he's going to do. He can build what he wants to build. That one ain't never going to rise up and be a world power. Yeah, we're all going to be seduced by that idiot over there. Huh? E-Day.
So many preachers, Jim, are prophesizing that that's part of the end.
It's idiocy. It's stupid. The old Babylon, I'm looking for something here.
The Bible says no.
Wait a minute. Have y'all got it? I'm looking for Proud Mountain. Huh? Where is it? What verse is it? It's eluded me. Proud. It's there in Jeremiah. Hold on, I got to give you this. Huh? You found it? I know the verse, and I'm just drawing a blank. You proud. Here it is. Jeremiah 50. Jeremiah 50, 29. Jeremiah 50, 29. Here is the call to destroy Babylon. Call together the archers against Babylon, all ye that bend the bow, camp against it round. Let none thereof escape. Recompense her according to her work, according to all that she hath done unto her. For she hath been proud. Let us make us a name against the Lord, against Shem, against the Holy One of Israel. Therefore shall her young men fall in the streets, and all her men of war shall be cut off in that day, saith the Lord. Behold, I am against thee, O thou most proud. Let us make us a name, arguing with God about killing a fruit tree or anything else. Saith the Lord of hosts, for thy day is come, the time that I will visit thee. In the most proud mountain, Babylon, will stumble and fall, the mother of all idolatry. everything your eyes see, and everything your ears hear you want. That's what this is talking about. It's talking about self wanting to argue with God. Get your foot out of your mouth, Peter. He is not ignorant. You are. And so are we outside the Word of God. And the most proud shall stumble and fall, and none shall raise him up. I will kindle the fire in his cities, and he shall devour all around about him. There it is. The proud mountain. Now let's go to Revelation 6. I've got, and you know, though we have all faith to remove mountains, 1 Corinthians 13, and we have not charity, we're not walking in the commandments of God, means nothing if we're not walking in truth. Look here, I don't even have time to get all of this. I'm going to get into the sea, things I haven't told you before. The sea is going to take me 2 weeks, I bet you.
Wear a life jacket.
Since Peter was arguing with Jesus, here is the sea. Of course, this is part of it. We're going to go into the sea, but here's the sea right here. The sea was a frightening place for the Jews. They were terrified of the sea. They said the demons lived in the sea. They said Dagon, the fish god, lived in the sea. All the great stormy winds. They said hell was to the west. What was west of Israel? The Mediterranean. They said at the bottom of the sea, Dagon, the fish god, took you into Tartarus, into hell. And to call this the sea was frightening. This is where they were cleansed. Did not Babylon come up out of the sea in Daniel 7? Wasn't Babylon a mountain? Wasn't it a capital city? Don't we see the harlot, that great city that reigns, that great capital city that reigns over the kings of the earth, coming up out of the sea in Revelation 13:1? They were terrified of the sea. When Jesus came walking on the sea at night, they said it is a spirit. It is a pneuma. One of the words for spirit is demon. They said it is Dagon. They thought it was the sirens. The sirens, woo! And they were seducing people, and they were afraid the sirens or the harpies were going to get them. And Jesus said, "Fear not, it is I. There are no ghosts." They were in a storm. He had to compel them. He twisted their arm to go out there at night at the fourth watch at 3 o'clock in the morning. They never fished it late at night out on the sea. They fished barely offshore. Jesus said, "Launch out in the deep." They said, "We don't fish out there at night." They thought Dagon was there. Who was he? That was Neptune, the merman, the mermaid. They said he had the keys to Tartarus and he'd take you down to hell. And I'm going to go through that next week. They were terrified of the sea. When they did their trade routes, they didn't have the navigational charts that we have. They stayed right close to the shore. And one time Paul was in a ship there at the end of his life, and they were going along the shore of Crete, and a storm come along, takes them out there. They were terrified of the sea. The great sea was the Mediterranean. And since all of the empires were around the great sea, that's why it says the empires rose up out of the sea. And the woman sat on the waters, and the waters where the woman sat was peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. These are idioms, folks. Don't you listen to Fred Price. Don't listen to Kenneth Copeland or Paul Crouch. Those guys are the biggest idiots I've ever seen in my life. They're the greatest seduction the world has ever seen. No truth. This is talking about getting rid of self. When you start talking about, look, God, give me, I believe you're going to give me. No, he's not a genie. A genie is a demon. Demons didn't exist. In mythology, they distributed fortunes. Here's the sea. And when God named this the sea right in front, 7th chapter, 1 Kings, every morning they had to go to the sea, the brazen sea. It started off as a laver when they left Egypt, but they called it a sea because of its great dimensions. But I believe they called it a sea because that's where you cleansed yourself. He said, you need to be cleansed. We went down and cleansed the literal temple right between cursing the fig tree and right between what I've been telling you. Here, I cursed the tree and you corrected me. The next day, we went and cleansed the literal temple. Now you are the temple of God. You need to be cleansed if you're going to be a prophet and a priest of mine. You need to believe me and quit arguing with me. I knew how old that tree was. Stop arguing with me, Peter. You got your foot in your mouth. It's always wet. That's the brazen sea. Every morning, all the priests. And Jesus said, you need to be washed in the sea. And He gave it a title of something that petrified them. Well, they ought to be petrified of this sea. Because if they made one mistake in the law of God and presumed to do something He didn't want them to do, like Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, when they offered strange fire, said, we won't offer fire from off the altar. Hey, hand me your bick. Hey, they light it with some kind of match or some kind of fire off the ground. God said, you offered strange fire, bam, you're dead. I mean, He killed them. And that was a picture. Washing in the sea was the picture of going to offer sacrifice. You die to self here. When you are casting the mountain into the sea, you're getting rid of self, aren't you? This whole thing is metaphor. These are idioms. These are sayings. But I'm going to get, next week, I'm going to go into the fear of the sea. I'm going to go into some of these things, what they're afraid of. When they saw Jesus, they said, it is a spirit. The harpies are going to get us. Jesus said, fear not. I know you're still of little faith and you haven't gotten rid of all of your pagan superstitions. It's just me, kids. It's like when you go into your child's room and, Mommy, there's a monster in the closet. There's a monster under my bed. It's me. You're okay. Get out of here, monster. Shh. Don't you do that? And you say, it's just me. He was so comforting them. He was saying to them, there is no harpies. There are no sirens. They were terrified. He twisted their arm. And anke, it means to twist the elbow. He twisted their arm to get them to go out on the sea in the middle of the night. And then He comes walking to them. Do you know what they called the sea? Oh, yeah. But you know what they called the sea? They called it a giant snake, since it was the place of Dagon that circled the earth. It was a coiling snake, and Jesus was walking on the serpent. That's what they called it. Isn't that great? And they said, the Dagon, here's Dagon. I've got it right here. The fish god. Dag is the word fish. There's the mitre of the Pope. That's the fire worship. That's the Mass. There's the fish going. The robe was the fish's body. They worshiped the fish. It was the deification of Noah. They were terrified of the whales. They said they were mean and ornery. Even when Jules Verne wrote 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, they thought whales were mean in the 1800s. When Moby Dick was written, they thought there could actually be a great big white whale out there that would attack you, a big sperm whale, and they're just gentle as things. And we still had the same superstition about whales being evil and mean, and they called the whales Dagon. They called him also Leviathan. Leviathan was evil men, and sometimes it was said to be that great serpent that encircled the sea. I'm going to go into Leviathan next week, but let me give you a couple more things here. I wish I had a bunch of... Isn't that a great picture, though? There's the sea. It was twofold. When Jesus named it the sea, He gave them He gave them a name that they were terrified of. And I've got all of this documented. This is some things that's been coming together on this. Last night I couldn't go to sleep. Went to bed at 7 o'clock this morning. I couldn't go to sleep for thinking of all the things on the sea and what they thought. The whole world to the west was the Mediterranean. They said hell was to the west. You have to remember, they didn't have one of these maps. They did not. Geography was not developed. They were right here, and all they knew was what was in here. When they looked out here, for all that they knew, that thing went forever. They said it was boundless, and they called it the abyss. It had no bounds. Remember the word definition? Means to bound. Bound. Define means to bound. You set boundary lines, and that's what we've been doing this morning. We've been defining words. Means to bound. Well, the word A-B, bottomless pit, A-B-U-S-S-O-S, that means boundless. It means it has no definition. That's why we say it comes from the word bathos. Bathos. Bathos means great intellectual depth. That's the same word, bathos. Look over here in first. I've got so much. Oh yeah, I will. But look at this real quick, and I'll go to Revelation 6. Go to 1 Corinthians. Remind me to go there in just a second. 1 Corinthians. I've got, man, I want to preach this, but it'll take about 5 hours. Y'all don't want to stay, do you? Take about 5 hours. Go over here to 1 Corinthians 14. Look at verse 10. But God eye hath not seen nor ear heard, neither it's entered the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for those that love Him. But God hath revealed them unto us by His Spirit, by the truth. For the Spirit searcheth all things, yea, the deep things of God, the bathos things of God. When you place, that means great intellectual depth and understanding. When you place the alpha privative in front of bathos, it means no knowledge. It has no definition. It's boundless. When you define things, you put a bound on things. Reminds us of horizo, doesn't it? Horizo means to bound. Prohorizo is the word predestinate. For whom He did foreknow, He pre-bound. He defined His people. Huh? Romans 8:20.
14.
Huh? 14 and
1 Corinthians 14.
no 2 and 10. Did I say 14? Oh, I'm sorry. 2 and 10. But God hath revealed these things that eye has not seen or ear heard. For the Spirit searcheth all things, yea, the deep things of God. Deep is the word bathos. Abathos is the word abusos. And they said the great Leviathan lived in the abusos and would take you down to hell. And that's why the apostles were saying, it is a demon. It is perhaps the harpies. Maybe it is Neptune himself. Or perhaps it is the Kraken. And he's coming out of the mist. He's going to get us. And Jesus said, fear not. There's no such thing. It's just me walking on the serpent. Isn't He going to put all things under His feet? And I'll put enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed and her seed. I believe that's a shadow of Him crushing the head of Satan. And it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. And He said He would walk on the serpent. He said, since all the world believes this is a serpent, watch me walk on it. And He walked on the water. That's the significance. Isn't that great? But how are you going to know that unless you knew during that day and time all of the Roman, Greek gods and superstitious people believed that the world was wrapped around by a great serpent called the sea.
Evidently, when the winds, and the weather got real bad, that you said come out of there. And then when He calmed them, they said, who is this?
They called the harpies, they said the harpies were the strong, powerful winds. And they would come out of the strong northeast dark winds and they'd get you. And all they knew when they saw somebody come out of, their boats were rickety, they stayed on the shoreline, and when they decided to go out across the sea, you had to be a brave man to go across the sea. They were frightened out of their minds at the sea. You remember Jonah? Remember Jonah? Jonah, what did they say to Jonah? They said, everybody pray to your gods right now, hurry! They carried their deities on the prow of their ship. Usually was a female goddess. That's why they called the ships she, so it could fight off Dagon or the Leviathan in the sea. And they thought it was the whale, and they thought that was the devil's agent. And the Leviathan would take you down to Tartarus.
That's why Job said he had gone down on the bars of hell and compassed him about.
Yeah, there in Jonah 2 and 1, he said, out of the belly of hell cried I. That's why he said that. They believed that's where it was, and he had been swallowed by the Leviathan, and he was going to go to hell because he had not repented and rejected God. So they were scared of the sea. When Jesus said, be washed in the sea, they're going, oh. But they knew what the sea was. They knew also they were frightened of this other sea, of this one, that if they didn't perform their sacrifices correctly, they would die right where they stood. let's go to Revelation. What is 6? Let's go to Revelation 6. We're going to go through this. It's going to take us some weeks. If you think, if you think it's what Kenneth Copeland says, never mind what I've said this morning. Just never mind. Never mind. Yeah. Those guys are idiots. There is an apostasy. There's a worldwide deception. It's the doctrines that's being preached. It is the words that's coming from the mouth of these false teachers. Are they popular in the world? Yes. Then they're enemies of God. Whosoever be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. Woe unto you when all men speak well of you, for so did their fathers of the false prophets. Is Billy Graham popular? Does everybody love him? Leo Brigman, who calls me from Chicago. Leo said he was out at Moody Bible Institute, and he was talking to a man out there. And he said, this man said Billy was in there one day, and he said, why is it that, he's talking to this friend of his, he said, why is it all the world hated Paul and Jesus, and they all like me?
What is the correlation?
He's preaching a mush gospel. He's saying nothing. I'll tell you what, if great men like George Whitefield were here, he would go down there to the crusade and he'd walk up there and say, Billy, get off this platform. If Nehemiah were here, he'd drag him out. But he's a nice guy. He's a real nice guy. If I was in the world and wasn't repenting of my sin, I would love to have him for a grandfather or neighbor next door.
Where do you find those verses? If
Huh?
you're popular to men, you're enemies of God. Where do you find those verses?
James 4:4, and Luke 6:26. Woe unto you when all men speak well of you. Whosoever be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. If you can get the vote from the world, you are God's enemy. And that's what these preachers can get. They can get the money, can't they? Go over here to Revelation 6. I've got much more on the mountains. Okay, once more on the mountains. And we're going to get into saith. Saith means a systematic discourse. A systematic discourse is a rehearsed speech, one that's already been written down. You have to say the Word of God. It's the word lego. It's the movement of the logos. Saith. You got to say what God says to get what you say. You cannot make up new doctrines and call it faith, and it's wishing. And the Bible commands, if people say you're too angry, no, the problem is you're not angry enough. And if you do not know you're being lied to, when you find out, you're going to be infuriated. Why do you think we're meeting in this little room? Because I just like little bitty rooms better than I like big buildings? But what's amazing is we're reaching more people from this little bitty room than all the churches in Nashville are reaching. First of all, they're not reaching anybody if they're not talking about daily death to self, daily cross, daily dying. They're reaching no one. We're reaching hundreds of thousands of people every week on radio and TV out of this little room here. Now look here, and I'll read this, and I've got much more on mountains. No matter where you go, you find mountain. It was the capital city. Babylon was built on let us make us a name. That was Peter and John arguing with Jesus. Had nothing to do with the mountain of debt. And it does not say, like R.W. Wacko says, when he says, have the faith of God. And by faith, we believe the worlds were formed by the Word of God. Not by God's faith, by our faith, we believed He formed them. Those guys are knuckleheads. They got knuckles all over their heads up here. Now look here. At the end of time, I beheld, verse 12, when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. You find that earthquake over in the 16th chapter. You find that earthquake in the 11th chapter. You find that earthquake in the 6th chapter. You find the destruction of Babylon in all those chapters. A great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair. That takes us to the scorpions. They said to the scorpion was a false teacher, that when they came up out of those little furrows in the ground, that they would block the sun for miles, and it would be dark. And they're blocking the light. The false teacher, scorpizo is the verb form of a scorpion. Scorpizo means to scatter abroad. And the hireling, the man that works for money, he cares not for the sheep. He allows the wolf to come in and scatter. He's a scorpion, a false teacher. And the moon will become blood. The moon will die. To become blood, one of the meanings for the word blood means to die. Who are the moon worshipers? The Babylonians. All this is figurative language. If you miss that, you've missed the whole thing. And the stars of heaven fall into the earth. What are the stars of heaven? The first chapter of Revelation gives you the glossary. 7 stars in his right hand. 7 is the number of the refined church. The 7 stars are the 7 angels of the 7 churches. Angel is angelos. It means messenger. This is the messengers of the refined church. And he's got 7 stars in his right hand. He gives the 7 stars, or the church, 7 trumpets in Revelation 8, 9, and 10. And we're going to be changed at the 7th, or the last trump. After the tribulation of those days, not pre-trib rapture. That's not true. And the stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain, every capital city, when Jesus comes back, and every island were moved out of their places. Get out of the way for the real mountain. It's Jesus Christ and His Jerusalem coming down out of heaven. And they're going to be moved out of authority. Amen. That's what that's talking about. Amen. This is a mighty God, and we've turned Him into Santa Claus or some kind of a genie, and it's disgusting. We'll be moved out of their places. And then the kings of the earth, the governors, and they resided in these mountains, and the great men and the rich men and the chief captains who rule these mountains, and the mighty men who rule these kingdoms and domains and capital cities, and every bondman and every free man, bondman, hid themselves in dens in the rocks of the mountains. They hid themselves in the authorities. It doesn't mean they're going to go hide while Jesus is coming back in some literal mountain. They're going to say, protect us from Him, oh United Nations, oh America, oh Washington. This is not a Christian nation. Is it? No. There's nothing Christian about America. Reformed? Are you kidding? And say to the rocks and mountains, fall on us, hide us from the face of Him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of God. For the day of His wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? No mountains are going to stand before God. No capital cities and no rulers. I've got more mountains here. But let me give you one more, because the only other place where verse 14 says, and the heaven departed as a scroll. Look at Isaiah 34:4 and we'll quit. Isaiah 34:4. And I'm coming back next week and talk about seas. Isaiah 34:4. You see, when you explain their idioms, they're much deeper than ours. Aren't they? Huh? Much deeper. You can't explain a mountain by just seeing it all of a sudden. A mountain of debt. Say to the debt. Good night, Irene. 34:1. Come near, ye nations, to hear, and hearken, ye people. Let the earth hear, and all that is therein, the world and all things that come forth of it. For the indignation, the fury, the anger of the Lord is upon all nations, all mountains, and His fury upon all their armies. He hath utterly destroyed them. He hath delivered them to the slaughter. Their slain shall be cast out, and their stink shall come up out of their carcasses, and the mountains shall be melted with their blood. Their mountains are going to liquefy. Their authorities are going to dissolve. And the mother of harlots is going to be destroyed as a proud mountain and burnt there in Revelation 18. And all the host of heaven shall be dissolved. What were the heavens called? The ruling class. What was the earth? The ruled. And the host of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down as the leaf falleth off of the vine, as falling fig from a fig tree. All of it's going to be destroyed. All the rulers except Jesus Christ when He comes back, and you're going to find out it ain't money then. Now go back to, just let me read that one more time. Mark 11:23. Let's see if we can understand this now. Mark 11. Let's just read this. I just thought I'd take a little extra time here. And I've got much on the sea. We need to get into that. Mark 11. Look at verse 20. And in the morning as they passed by, they saw the fig tree dried up by the roots, and Peter, recalling to remembrance, saith unto him, Master, Iday, are you ignorant? The fig tree which you cursed is withered away. And Jesus is thinking to himself, it's 5 years old and not bearing figs. I'm God. I know where it is. I know how old it is. Jesus never even broke the law of Moses. If he was, he wouldn't have been God. And Jesus answering said unto them, Have faith in me. I'm God. Listen to me. Quit arguing with me. For verily I say unto you that whosoever shall say to this mountain of Babylon, what has mothered all idol worship, and you are worshiping yourself. You have come up with your own authority, your own name, and you're telling me what to do. Be thou removed and be thou cast into the sea. You're going to be a priest of mine. You're going to be washed in the sea. And shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith, lego, systematic discourse, shall come to pass. Then you get what you say. You agree with me, Peter. Then that's when you get what you say. This is, I'll just add this in. They washed at the sea every morning. And then they offered sacrifice through the day. As they went to new sacrifice, they would wash their hands and their feet only. When Jesus washed Peter's feet in John 13, he was showing the picture of guiding one another to new sacrifice. When he was nailed to the cross, all the rituals became spiritual. When you gather together to discuss the Word of God, you're washing each other's feet to go offer a new sacrifice. Our body's a living sacrifice daily. That's why when the apostles reached when the Pharisees pushed their hand down into water up to here, they'd wash their hands off with soap, and then a ritual, they'd plunge their hands down. It was the picture of going to the sea. And they said to Jesus, why don't your apostles wash their hands before they eat the sacrifice from the altar? And he said, you make the word of God of none effect by your traditions. None effect is the word akurao. It comes from kurao. It comes from kurios, means Lord, with the alpha privative in front of it. No Lord by traditions. Let's pray. Father, thank you for letting us see the real truth about this Scripture. God, help us to continue to study these idioms and metaphors. Lord, you've helped me to see so much lately. Give us a good lesson. Let this continue, Lord, that we may see what this is about. I don't know why you let me see this. I'm unworthy, Lord. Whatever you want me to do with it, I'll do. Crush us under your hand. May we get rid of the mountain of Babylon, Lord. Command it to remove from us. That will humble and level this mountain of self that argues with you. Lord, we praise you for it all in Jesus' name. Amen.